All right, so I'd like to call to order the Open Space Stewardship and Policies Work Group for January 5th. It's Susan Messino and, well, Eric, you're on, are you still on the committee or no? Public?
I'm not. I'm just, now that I'm no longer first selectman, I actually have more time to focus on things that I think are interesting. So
excellent. All right. So the first item is the minutes from October 13th. Did anyone have any issues with that meeting? Otherwise, all right, so we vote them in. I just love this because there's so few of us. Vote. Susan, do you want to make a motion to accept the minutes? All right, now.
I move to accept the minutes.
All right, second. All right, and all in favor? All right, good. All right, so the second item is discussion on ARPA funding for open space. Susan, was this something you wanted to, or?
So yeah, I just threw that in there in the email to everyone because I've had this list that I've been wordsmithing for a long time and kind of collecting information from the Working Lands Alliance and other like ideas of things that we've kind of had on the agenda that might fit within the guidelines for the ARPA funding, which I'm not 100% sure exactly what those are, but I know that health and well-being is one of the kind of criteria. And so I had reached out to the Working Lands Alliance to see if they had anything for, let's say, farms. So is there anything, if local farms are something that are important to health and well-being, metabolic ill health is one of the biggest predictors of a poor outcome with COVID. I think that would really fit into that, kind of conceptual framework for the ARPA funding. So I had reached out and I got some documentation from the Working Lands Alliance for advice to municipalities in Massachusetts for how they could apply ARPA funding to help farms. So I had that link. And then I had also seen that there was a Connecticut farm to school grant program, and I had kind of collected that. And some other things that I had collected were, some ideas that we had in the science and technology working group for the state. So I collected a bunch of ideas related to farms and then related to open space, which is also related to health and well-being. I was thinking back to what were some of the original motivations for the master plan, which was getting a handle on our ecology, getting a handle on invasive so that our, the ecology we have doesn't, go down the tubes. Trail erosion, we have ponds that need some work. We were trying to look at, connectivity between areas. So are there sidewalks or other trail connections and things like that that we could, could be projects that would fall under the, guidelines for the ARPA funding. Now, I don't know if any of those things are valid projects, but I just thought if they are, it might be good to kind of talk about it amongst the open space commission so we could kind of sort through those and similar ideas.
I know. I looked at the ARPA website and they were saying things that because the open space got more use during the pandemic, that, any repairs or upgrades or things like that would fall under that. How does it work though with the town? Does the town know how much ARPA funding? Do we have to apply for the ARPA funding? How's that work?
Eric, do you want to go on that?
yeah, and you can add or correct me, but we
Yes.
have approximately $7.5 million. And there's a work group with Sean and Wendy from the Board of Selectmen, basically figuring out how to spend this money. I was going to suggest that if there are ideas if you have ideas, rather than spending too much time really fleshing it out, is connecting with Sean and or Wendy, bringing it up at the committee. Amy Merriweather, our finance director, will be able to tell us hopefully pretty quickly whether it would be a qualifying expense. And then if it's qualifying, we could bring it back to open space and sort of vet it further. But I wouldn't want to spend too much time on it if it's not even going to be qualifying.
Yeah, I'll just add that the final rules, a lot of communities are waiting for the final rules to be published by the government. Those are supposed to come out in January, by the end of January, but you know how things sometimes get delayed a little bit with the final things. But the Treasury Department's supposed to put those out, I believe, by the end of January. And then everybody's going to kind of parse through it a little bit to find out exactly what you can spend that money on, what you can't. They've just given broad stroke guidelines right now, like what you said, they're, health and well-being. Well, what exactly does that mean? And there was a focus on social, emotional health for youth or continuums for youth, and not much for, not as many for other populations, I thought. But, so some communities have kind of jumped forward saying, yes, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Our community tends to be more fiscally conservative and conservative is the wrong word, fiscally responsible, which I applaud them for that. So I think they're waiting for the final guidelines to come out before they kind of really digging in deep to that. And because I know I've asked about a couple of different initiatives or projects, and we're kind of not quite sure if that's going to fit or not. They've been speaking with the state representatives and trying to get some guidance from them. But I think everybody's kind of waiting for that final document to come out, and those are the rules we'll all live by at that point.
So how will the process work? I mean, Sean and Wendy are working on it. Would they get input, open to input from?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're meeting regularly. I assume at least once a month. I don't know exactly where they are in the process, but it's still early and very much open for input. The only other thing that I would just share for context is that there are some communities, if you can demonstrate as a community that you've lost revenue and suffered financially because of the pandemic, there are a lot more options how you can use the money. So people are asking us, like, Canton's doing X, Y, and Z. Why can't we do that? And we can't demonstrate that we've lost money because we had like the best revenue year ever last year.
Yeah. Yep. I should have added that. Yeah, that's a big piece of this too.
Mm-hmm.
So the funding would be contingent on that.
Yeah. But let's vet it with the committee, and Amy can, I think, quickly give us, hopefully quickly give us guidance on whether it would qualify.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I can just make a list of some of these things, and I just wanted to put it out to this group. And I think, we can also, the social and emotional health definitely, fits into this like health and well-being thing that we're talking about as well. So even if we didn't lose revenue, that doesn't mean that people aren't, anxious. And if you look at economic stuff worldwide, one of the most cost-effective things you can do is prevent mental illness. So anyway, just FYI. All right. So anyway, I just put that on the agenda because I wanted to kind of, let everyone know that I was thinking about some things, and I think we could make a list. And these things aren't costly. There's just no budgeting for them, and they're one-time things. So this is like a perfect opportunity to get some of this stuff done that we don't have any other mechanism for.
Sure.
So we'll find out by the end of January hopefully what the federal government has in mind. We'll go from there. Yeah, exactly. All right. So moving on to item 3, which is Open Space Rangers Program. Susan, I know I've gone down to Richfield several years ago and got this information brought back. You went down and you got some information brought back. I think it's a fantastic program. I think it's run out of their conservation commission. Yes.
I was going to say, I talked to Dan, and now I'm forgetting his last name, but he is a wealth of information, and he sent me extensive zipped files. They have everything. They have, like, the rangers, if they're out checking a trail, they put a little thing on their dashboard, like the rangers here. They have instructions on how to blaze a trail. They have an intro letter, like, welcome to our ranger program. They have a yearly party thanking people for like going out on the trails. They have their own logo. They have like all this kind of stuff. And it was really, really inspiring to talk to him because he was so excited about it. And he said it's just been really, really successful. And, it's not costly. It's mostly just the like community spirit associated with it. And so I have all of those documents. I didn't do anything with them. So I mean, I haven't even had time to look. It's so much stuff. I haven't even had time to look it over all.
It's extremely well organized. I was actually the speaker at one of their parties. They had the annual party. That's how I found out about it. I was asked to speak to their group, and it was a lovely event. They had, it was, and everyone there was extremely enthusiastic about being a ranger. I know it's similar to, we have stewards for the Simsbury Land Trust, and we could not do anything for the Land Trust without them. They're incredibly valuable. So to get them for the town would be great.
Yeah. So I've already talked to the scout troop that meets at First Church, which is right next to Belden Forest, and they're on board. I haven't sent any of the documents to them, but I think they would be a good group for that property. And there's another scout troop. I'm not sure if it's 174 or 175 that regularly uses Onion Mountain for camping, like once a year or something. And I thought maybe that would be a good group to approach about Onion Mountain. And so anyway, I'd like to get this rolling this year. And Dan offered to come to one of our meetings if we give him a little bit of notice, either our working group or our main meeting. If we wanted that, I'm not trying to push for that. I'm just saying that he offered. And I think this would be a good thing to get going. And there's also some interest in in mapping our trails and all this kind of stuff. So there's like a whole bunch of little like things that have been kind of on the agenda that I think could be slowly chipped away at with this kind of cadre of stewards.
Yeah, I think there's also the scout group at St. Mary's might be interested in doing some work along the Greenway Trail.
Perfect.
Yeah, so
I think that would be
the interest is out, and they also have they need to do some conservation work, but I think they're also the adults, the families can get involved, and the neighbors people get very attached to the trail that's near them or their trails. So I think the people are out there.
Marjorie, do you want to? Well, I'm just because I'm always like, well, how are we going to move this forward? I mean, do you want to see if you can reach out to the St. Mary's people, and I could see if I could track down who's with Onion Mountain and
I already have
Belden.
Yeah, I had a young gal that was working with me on some mugwort removal on the Greenway Trail last fall. I think she wanted to move forward with it in the spring, so I can touch base with her. And I think Orlando, I needed to touch base with you to let you know that they wanted to do that. But I think if we can formalize this, it would be, because you always feel badly going into a public place and start pulling out invasive, I always feel badly, like pulling out things.
You don't feel bad about it, Marjorie.
I don't feel bad pulling out the plants. I just feel like someone's going to wander by and think, what is she doing? So, having that little sign saying, this is authorized by the town would really be, I think, helpful.
Yeah, and Margie, I think also communicating with the Parks Department, because we typically get the phone calls when these kind of things are happening. So communicating with us that they're going to be out there doing these invasive, pulling or digging or whatever it is that you're doing out there.
So it has to have some sort of formality.
Yeah. But I do agree that tapping onto your everyday user of these trails, there are people that really are out there 3 or 4 times a week enjoying these trails that wouldn't mind, because it's a part of their regular work schedule, going out there and being a conservation ranger and doing what needs to get done, whether they're pushing a log out the way or picking up trash or just being the eyes for us and letting us know that something needs to get done in certain sections of the trail would be extremely helpful.
Yeah. All right. So to move it forward, we need.
Can we do a social media posting? Maybe you'll get people that would just volunteer.
It could, and then we'd need some sort of a get together or something. We'd also need some training.
Right.
So I'm sure there must be information in the Ranger guidebook, how they.
Yeah, maybe I should send all these documents around. I mean, the documents are pretty extensive, and maybe we should, people should look at those, and we should think about adapting them to Simsbury, so we kind of have like a toolbox for people when we launch this. And I think also, I mean, I think probably we should just get a consensus of the whole open space commission too at the next meeting. So my goal at this meeting was just say like, hey, I think this is like, I got all these documents, confirming it seems like it should be a go. Maybe we should put it on the agenda for the next open space committee meeting, send the documents around.
And that might be the place to have the presentation too, so we get all the questions answered. And I'm sure there'll probably be some legal questions about, public liability or issues and things that need to be, I'm sure Richfield has addressed that.
Yeah, normally for volunteers I've worked with on town properties, there's a liability waiver form for the group. Everybody signs it, and that way if someone twists an ankle while they're working, it's a very basic form that's simple to get.
So, and I'm sure Richfield's got that in their documents too. So yeah, so Susan, if you send those to Tom, I'm trying to think if it's Tom Hazel or Tom Fitzgerald.
Tom's everywhere. Just send it to a Tom.
Send it to one of the Toms, and then that'll be sent out.
Send it to all three, something will happen.
Send it to the Toms, and hopefully we can get it, discussed at the next open space meeting, and then we can sort of start figuring out how to formalize this. But I think it's an excellent idea, because there are only so many town staff, and as Orlando says, you need more eyes and feet on the ground and eyes on the trails.
Yeah, and if they're out there anyway, they're already doing the job. They're just not official on it, basically.
That's right. All right. Thank you, Susan. Habitat maintenance program. This is a catch-all for some of the things we wanted to discuss. I'm still looking forward to, we need to somehow formalize our meadow mowing practices. I know it's really easy to mow in the fall, but it's for pollinators and many of our winter hibernating insects, it's one of the worst times to mow. It's tricky to get. Spring in Connecticut is sometimes brief. So it's hard to get all the staff out to do the mowing at the right times. And you have to get it before the birds start nesting. So it's often a short window when whether the ground is dry enough to mow.
Yeah, that's a concern we've had in the gentleman. We contract out some of this open space mowing just because we can't do it all.
No.
And his concerns have been, getting stuck out in the middle of
and I know it's not good. And I know with Simsbury Land Trust, we tried a spring mowing and the mower got stuck and big problems.
Yeah. So we've been trying to push it back as absolutely, after the first frost, as late as possible. I think we did it in November this year. It was mid-November.
Yeah.
Somewhere around.
But the problem is it really still, it fits our cycles and it fits our mowing, but we need to start thinking about maybe mowing every other year or mowing half the field or identifying which fields we're going to mow at what time. I know in the Simsbury Land Trust, what we've done is we've identified our fields numerically, 1, 2, 3, 4, and one site. And we are going to mow the even on the even years and the odd number fields on the odd years. It will require some public education to leave the stubble up because people will think it's unkempt. But if you mow around the edges, it's okay. It looks fine. But by mowing every year, we are really decimating the insect population. We might be able to cut back on the amount of mowing if we mow it every other year because it will keep down the woody vegetation, but you don't have to mow, or even half a field. But that gets a little tricky. But I think we need to identify fields so that it's known which field to mow when.
Yeah, Margie, and I think we had this discussion briefly in our pollinator meeting.
Yeah.
And I do agree that we do have these fields and open space areas that we can do every couple year mowing techniques on them and not have zero to no impact to the residents of Simsbury.
Yes.
Then not being quite the look that they might want to look at in their backyard. But I think we started doing some of that about 3 or 4 years ago. A couple areas in town that we stopped mowing on a yearly basis. So we are doing some of it. Certainly, there's more that we can do going forward. But I think we can go around town, identify some of these properties, and say, okay, this one here, we're gonna like the corner of Hopbrook and Great Pond, that 4-acre piece of property there that we did not mow this year. We'll mow it probably next year, every other year. So yeah, there's certain areas that we can identify as maybe not mowing on a yearly basis.
Now, the property that wasn't mowed this year, was it, have you had any complaints from the neighbors or?
Not necessarily. I don't know if they were neighbors or not or not neighbors. I've gotten some questions about it. Orlando actually came up with a sign that we're going to start putting around some of these places. It's a no mow zone sign.
Excellent.
So we took another community's no mow zone sign and I should have had a copy of it. That we're going to have about 16 or 17 of these made and put some of these around. And it basically says why we're not doing it, for what the environmental benefits of it are. So the one that Orlando's talking about at the corner of Laurel and Great Pond, a few questions. Why didn't it get mowed this year? It's a pretty meadow. I pass it by all the time and it's not mowed, blah, blah, blah. That one was relatively quieter than it had been in the past in my experience with Let It Go. The one that we get a lot of questions on, and would need a lot of education, is the triangle. I mean, that's the one. It's a lot. I know it appears a lot on social media. Why isn't someone mowing it? I'm going to go out and mow it. A lot of enthusiastic folks, but because it's so visible for everybody that lives on that side of town. That's the one that's, we don't hear a lot about the K-Circle one. We don't hear a lot about, now we're going to have to address the other one on the other side of Firetown Road, across from the triangle as well. But the triangle is so visible that, by I think July, I was getting calls this year. Why hasn't it been mowed yet? And that if we let that one go 2 years, it's going to take a lot of education and some strong wills to carry that forward.
Yeah, because of lack of. Oh, I'm sorry. Go, Eric.
I was going to say I'm really excited that you're able to invest in some of these signs and educate, because I talk a lot to the pollinator folks about the importance of the education, because I think otherwise I think most people in our community can appreciate that if there's like a good ecological reason we're not mowing, as opposed to just being lazy. And I think if we can explain that, I think most people will get behind that.
And that goes, I think the education goes to our website as well.
Yep.
We can put it up there. Sometimes it's hard to get stuff up on our website.
And we're happy to, we obviously want to be good stewards, and we're happy to do whatever we're told to do, basically. But there hasn't been any solid direction as what to do.
Yeah, no.
So I appreciate what you're trying to do, and if we could formalize it, that'd be great. It gives us something to point to that the Open Space Committee said this, and if somebody has a problem with it, we can certainly push them toward the education piece that's out there, but as well, give them, it wasn't necessarily someone else to yell at, kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah.
We'll put Marjorie's phone number on the sign.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not looking to pass the buck. It's just it becomes very hard. They think it's our arbitrary decision that we didn't mow it.
No. They can call me up and they can have a lovely conversation. They can listen to me tell them go into it more than they'd want to know. But sometimes just mowing around the edge. I think at the triangle, if you mowed a white strip around the edge, and left the inner parts up, that makes it look intentional, not neglected. Sometimes that might work.
Speak to the triangle and the history a little bit, just so that you understand, because we used to actually have that in agricultural lease agreements. There's a couple of drivers from the public in that area about ground nesting birds that seem to have driven a lot of the maintenance on that from a small handful of people. I think that it'll take some public input and some public meetings possibly, but I think that one, because of its visibility and its ability to create corridors between McLean and Great Pond and the such. It has the potential to get its own quote unquote management plan because it is good agricultural soils in there that are not being used, but at the same time, it can serve multiple purposes in one. We're never going to make everybody happy, but I know that there's some drivers in there who like to have it mowed when they want it mowed. There's some residents that have very strong feelings about the area. There's others who are like, why aren't we making use of it? So with the triangle, I think, some higher level management plan activity in public education through public hearings or meetings or whatever would be more necessary on that parcel than most others that we have. But it could be a good litmus test for the acceptance of the public on a greater master plan as we move through particular parcels and we start grouping them together. Like if we have, just off the top of the head, you got 30 parcels that we want to manage. We've come up with plans for them. Those get grouped together in a master book that we have. These are the management plans and these are why. I think that the triangle is going to be one of the higher level ones rather than some of the other parcels, which are easier to manage. But just with that, I just know that there's going to be a lot of feedback on that one. So just acting unilaterally might not be a great move on that parcel, but it's something that we should tackle moving forward. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah, I don't think it's, I think it's having a goal, a reason why we're mowing, rather than just mowing. What is the strategy? What is the goal for that piece of property? I think that really would go to most of our open space. What are we managing for?
Yeah, and I think with that parcel, you have a lot of attributes because of that connectivity, as well as the wetlands on the northern part of the parcel, plus the agricultural history and the structures on the property. There's a lot of attributes to it that need to be addressed and not just one environmental thing, because we can manage multiple environmental issues at the same time, as well give some usage to the property. And because quite frankly, it's an island unto itself surrounded by all those roads. So it's a unique piece.
Yeah. So I think, coming up with the goals for each property would then drive the management.
Yeah, at least the primary goal, because sometimes if you try and say there's multiple goals, you're not really achieving a good job at goal. So, and I just want to be careful about, the all of the above strategy, which kind of can turn into nothing really good if you're not careful.
And I know the soils there were so depleted over the years. I think the pH was way down. So it wouldn't be hard to have that land fallow for a while, but to build up the soil. But also, just identify this. If you identified it as you're managing for something, not managing for everything.
So at the next commission meeting, I don't recall what the date is, if it's February or March. If somebody wants to add it to the agenda, I'll make sure we have a copy of that no-mow sign on it. And you'll be able to see that, take a look at it. I thought it was a great idea. Orlando came up with that, and we kind of worked at it a little bit, made our own draft, and I think it's nice, and it'll hopefully explain some of it. It can easily be translated to social media because it's colorful and whatnot, so it'll help.
Thank you, Orlando. All right. That was my main habitat maintenance, that and the invasive plants, which is the next issue. Susan, did you have anything else, or anyone, Eric or Orlando, Tom? I know Orlando and Brian Johnson and Joe Campolito and I met at the Simsbury Farms last week, and we discussed figuring out areas that didn't need quite the mowing there, to let the, cut down on the amount of maintenance, but also to increase the habitat for either grass or pollinator species. And I thought that was an extremely productive meeting. We're looking forward to exploring that further. But I know that there's the Marriott Hotel golf course group has come up with this Operation Pollinator, which is a program to get more wildlife into the golf courses and less mowing around the golf courses. So, it's exciting to see this happening in Simsbury. So thank you, Orlando. It was a great meeting last week.
Yeah, it was. We're excited about it, Marjorie. So I think we identified some areas that I think will definitely be an asset to Simsbury Farms, and that letting them just grow in and become natural habitats and more like once a year, maybe every other year if need be.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. So if we can think of other areas in town that we want to, that would require less maintenance, but better maintenance. Well, not that it's been bad in the past, but it hasn't been focused to a particular goal. And Eric, did you want to talk about pollinators halfway, or?
I have, nothing other than what we've discussed. No.
Okay. And Susan, was there another habitat maintenance that you wanted to?
I don't think so. I mean, some of the things like the pond or stuff like that would be under, I wanted to talk about that as a possible thing for ARPA funding, but we could see about that. I know Town Forest Pond has been kind of on the agenda for a while, and this is a separate agenda item from invasives, right? That's our next agenda.
Yeah.
Okay. So my other maintenance issues were kind of related to invasives.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the invasive, because that's the last item on our agenda. Invasive plant removal practices. This is a huge problem for our open spaces. I know it's a huge problem for the Simsbury Land Trust. We have all these properties that, have invasive plant problems on them, and how do we get them out? It does tie in with the rangers, the open space ranger program. You can do some removal with special groups, but it's a problem. Every time I drive by Onion Mountain, I just cringe because of the burning bush that's there. And how as a town, how are we looking to prioritize what areas need to be addressed, and how do we nip the problems in the bud that we, when we see them, in small scales? The larger scales require a lot more effort. How do we do this?
Margie, I think, in the Parks Department, we are going to try and make the extra effort in these smaller areas when we see like a burning bush, and maybe get those areas removed. So we're going to hope and do more of that in the future. We've identified areas like, Curtis Park. We're going to have a burning bush over there. Apple Barn. We have a couple of burning bushes over there. So Onion Mountain Park. So areas that we can handle with some staff members, we're going to try and do some of that cleanup work. But as we know, invasives are a major issue in our community, and we didn't get here overnight, and we sure as heck ain't gonna get out of it overnight. So it's gonna take a lot of help, a lot of volunteers working together to solve these issues, and it's going to have to be use multiple techniques, whether we're pulling, mowing, smothering the weed, or even at some time having to put down some pesticides. I know it's not the popular thing that people want to hear, but pesticide does help with control of some of these invasive weeds that we're dealing with in town.
I guess we've got lots of sites. I was wondering, do we want to come up with a plan to prioritize various sites? Do we want to?
I do think that would be a good idea. You just have a list of the different sites, and maybe have a pull weed day, or have a town come show up and we'll feed you for the day, and we can have them either pull or trim back weeds.
I think an invasive plant day would be fantastic.
So maybe something like that. We'll pick an area, a couple areas a year that we can do it in the spring. I mean, also when you choose to remove the weeds is important too.
Yeah.
I mean, so are we doing the spring? Are we doing the fall? Typically, you don't want to do it in the summer because they're harder to pull in the summer once they're rooted in. So you want to pull the weeds in the spring when the ground is moist. It's easier to pull the weeds. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there is some thinking behind it when we do this townwide, invasive day. But I think getting volunteers involved is the only way
It's,
we're
yeah.
starting to move forward and get somewhat of control with our invasives in our community.
Right, and what Orlando's saying too, and I know Marjorie, you and I have had some conversations as far as getting it pulled before it seeds, it goes to seed and whatnot, but also some education on how this is going to be disposed of too. If we have volunteers all over town pulling things, we don't want to just dump it in a pile in the backyard either. So, or
No.
somebody on an open space, somebody might be well intended, just a bunch of sticks or whatnot, but it's really not. So, which
Yeah.
I think is a lot of a reason we're getting a lot of problems with open space. There's a lot, as you know, there's a lot of dumping that occurs from
Yes.
neighborhoods who are abutting, and we see it all the time. And a lot of this is somebody doesn't want this weed in their yard, but it's easy to dump it over the fence,
Yeah.
and then it goes to there. So
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful to us if we had some assistance in creating a priority list and some help in getting the word out about it, working on a particular day, staffing on a particular day. Because if we're looking to do an invasive day, I'm sure it's not going to be a Monday afternoon. It's probably going to be a Saturday morning type of thing. And, and we'd hate to have a bunch of paid rec staff out there without any volunteers or.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And I think also knowing what type of weeds we're pulling.
Correct.
And a proper way of pulling the invasives. Okay.
Yeah.
There's different techniques, like I said, that
Depends on the plant.
Depends on the plant and how
Yeah.
you're going to address that, because
Yeah.
you could be creating more problems in the future if you're not careful in how you dispose, like Tom said, how you dispose of these invasives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I think it'd be good to focus on one or two, pick the worst two offenders this year. And if we did a townwide effort on X day on how to, education over a whole week or two, like what we did with Simsbury Celebrates. This is
Yeah.
what we're looking for. This is how you get rid of it. This is how you dispose it, all the way through.
That's a good idea. It's a target on one. And because there's just so many, you get
Right.
overwhelmed.
You don't want people to get
People have a
confused.
hard time identifying plants too.
Yeah. And if they have a picture on their phone, this is what I'm looking for. I know I've got it, rather than scrolling through 12 of them. So.
Mhm.
And the nice thing is if we can convince them to pull it on their own property too, because I know, you drive up and down West Mountain Road and, they're burning bush all over Onion Mountain Park because they're up and down West Mountain Road. So removing them in in Onion Mountain is a useless activity because they're still going to be spread from the homeowners. That's going to be but that's an educational thing. That's where we need to, if we do target one plant, we can then do an educational push on that plant, say why it's not useful. Even though it's beautiful, it's not useful. So there has to, we have to be able to put out education on our website and other means too. So, we could do talks at the library, we could do various things. Susan.
Yeah, so I just wanted to butt in because I know Rachel, who was the consultant for the open space master plan, she invasives was one of the big agenda items that we had for the consultants, like give us some advice on, tractable projects and when to do stuff and all that sort of stuff. And she said she was giving us some big document, but I don't know. I never saw that. So I don't know. Tom, did she give you a kind of an advisory guide on invasives or what's?
I don't know. I don't recall. It's not a part. I don't think it's. I know it's not an addendum in our open space and master plan. I don't recall she sent me something separate. I'll have to look.
Yeah.
On that.
I mean, I brought this up explicitly when we made RFP, when we interviewed them, when I spoke to her personally and in multiple meetings. So if that wasn't delivered, I think we absolutely should ask for that because she basically told us that this is what she does. She basically told us she has a document that, gives advice about when to do what and all that kind of stuff. I think that would be super, super helpful because, as Orlando said, you could pull something up and then something worse could move in. I mean, this has happened to Bill Moorhead down in Fisher Meadows and other things. Like a worse invasive moves in if you disturb the soil. You take a burning bush and then you have an invasive grass that's even more difficult to.
Absolutely.
So I just want to be really I mean, I just want to be really thoughtful about this. And another kind of logistical strategy is trying to think about what are our kind of like sub-basin, I think that's what it's called, like watersheds, because stuff goes downhill, you know, of course by wind also, but you know, if you kind of, we could kind of think logically. Onion Mountain is a good example because that's almost at the headwaters there, where that, you know, there's not much above it, right? So we could kind of like do a strategic plan with that, but I think we just need to put some thought into it, because stuff is going to move in if we don't have a plan for maintaining it and making sure something doesn't retake over or a worse enemy comes to town.
Yeah, you know, I agree, Susan. I mean, the removal is portion of it is one plan. And then the second plan is what do you do after you remove these invasives? So you do have, there's a two-phase to this plan when you're trying to deal with invasives. So having a plan, having the areas that we can identify that we want to start on. They don't have to be big areas. There could be smaller areas just to get people involved and get them start thinking about what the plan is for the future. And educating them on why we're doing this. And that goes
and have some success. Don't feel like they put in the efforts and then like it's back, or there's like a worse thing there, right? I mean, we just don't want to have the bad experience.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are you know, a continual maintenance. I mean, the things are here. It's a matter of reducing the seed bed and reducing the seed spread. A lot of them are bird dispersed too, so that's a problem. But yeah, cutting them back and giving the natives a little chance to take over. But it's going to be a continual thing. It's sad. You won't, you know, if we go in, remove them, they'll be back, especially if they're in the area. So. But all right, so prioritizing certain, or picking a spot and prioritizing it might be an idea.
Yeah, maybe we should do Simsbury Farms.
I think Simsbury Farms would be an excellent place because it's extremely public, and that would be a great place for signage. Because a lot of people walk that farms.
Yep.
Walk around there, and there are lots of different habitats, and the equipment's there.
Yeah, it could be like
I agree with that.
piece. Yeah, I don't know.
And people go up there, and we have enough parking for people. We can, you know, we have bathrooms up there if needed. So we have everything that we need, facilities that we need to accommodate as many people that potentially could show up. You might only get 5 people, but you know, the first time, but maybe hopefully it grows in the future, you know. So it's a good place to start, and certainly we're up for that. If we can, you know, imagine we can identify an area and say we can start here and do a Saturday morning 4 hours. We don't want to, you know, beat people up too much, but just give them an idea of what it's going to take to get where we need to be in the future.
No, that'd be good. So, you know, I think picking a date, and we'll have to have a rain date too, and then we could strategize how to go about it. But I think Simsbury Farms would be an excellent place.
Yeah.
Central.
Yeah.
All right. So Orlando, you and I will come up with a date.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll be walking Simsbury Farms a few more times in the next couple months. So
That's right.
yeah, we'll come up with a date for that.
Okay, we'll come up with a strategy for that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else anyone wants to discuss? We've got a lot of stuff here. Anything additional? All right. So our next meeting on the first Wednesday in February, hopefully we'll go through that because we have some things to bring forward. So if there's no other discussion, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, Susan.
Motion to adjourn.
Anyone else want to second? I'll second. All right, so we're all in favor. All right, so thank you very much. Nice to see you. I'll see you in February.